You're now listening to a new episode of Gratitude Through Hard Times. Gratitude instills humility. Gratitude removes the ego. Gratitude helps empower the best in others around you. Our goal is to guide individuals and companies to practice gratitude so you can live a longer, happier, and more successful life. Get ahead of life with connection and purpose. This is Gratitude Through Hard Times with Chris Schembra.
Good afternoon and welcome back to another episode of Gratitude Through Hard Times. It's your host, Chris Schembra, and today we're broadcasting live from 30 Irving Studios. Shout out Paul Italia. What a wonderful thing you got here. To all our new listeners that are tuning in for the very first time, I want to welcome you and say hello. I don't know how you stumbled upon our humble little corner of the internet, but we sure are glad to see you. Take a look back through the podcast episode archives, and you'll see 6 years, over 260 episodes of our commitment to bring on some of the world's great storytellers to tell the stories of how they've built the companies they've built and are leading the way they're leading, having a positive impact on the world around them. I'm going to invite you to follow our journey. I'm going to invite you to stick around after this episode. To all our existing and loyal listeners, welcome back, friend. Some of my favorite moments throughout the week are when you email in your thoughts, questions, comments, and concerns about today's episode guest.
Ooh.
If you were here in person, I'd have you around my dinner table. I'd cook you a big bowl of pasta sauce and give you a warm hug, unless HR was present. So thank you for your loyal support. It's been a wonderful journey to get to know you over these last couple years. I'm excited about today's episode because I got my new friend Drew Sullivan here with his blue track suit. He's in town for a great event. We're going to have a good time. Drew has had a multifaceted career, just like me. He had a little reality TV stint. He had a career as a professional dancer. He's
No.
I
worked with dancers.
Worked with dancers, representing dancers.
Don't scare the listeners.
And is now in the speaking profession. He's a senior vice president at APB Speakers, which is one of the industry's leading bureaus to help you find keynote talent and campus programming for your upcoming conference or corporate event. Drew is what's called a purpose-driven dealmaker. He's got a voice, he's got a story, he's got a mission. He's a man who is open about his sobriety. He is a man that believes in dignity and belonging, and he helps champion conversations that help people of all ages, whether it's in corporate America or on campuses with young people, navigate division with courage and care. He is a mentor. He elevates others' voices. He brings out the best in the people around him. And he's got a story worth sharing, and we're going to share it today on our podcast today. So without further ado, welcome to the podcast, Drew.
Thank you. We're good now, right? That was great. That was a good.
Oh, yeah,
I'm good now. That was awesome.
We're in it. How do you feel? You're in New York
Great.
City for the first time since. Well, you used to live in New York City. How does it feel to be
Years
back
ago.
in the city?
It always feels different. I think now it feels more different. We're in a tough place as a country. Lots going on. A tough place as a world. I think New York is the energy's palpable, but it also I think can show you some of the hardest truths of what's happening in the world and around us. But yeah, it's always nice to come back, and it's nice to spend time with you.
So you come to New York and you're realizing the difference that we're going through during tough times. Where do you go in your life to realize the similarities that we go through good times, or to find the good through the bad?
I think you have to always just remember that any storm needs to end at some point, right? I mean, like that's the big thought, right? Like it can't rain forever. The clouds got to go away at some point. So I mean, that's like the long-term optimism. But I think that there's always a reframe. There's always a way to look at something from a different perspective and to see that, look at something as a challenge and less as a barrier, something that you can move through versus have stacked against you. But I think that unfortunately, like the realities of where we're at today is that systems are being really changed. Whatever political side you're on, right? It doesn't really matter. I think everyone can agree that systems are being challenged and changed. And so how does that impact day-to-day people, it impacts day-to-day people differently, all of them. There's no collective, oh, this is impacting such and such group of people one way or another group of people another way. And I think that's what I've noticed and what I see just minute to minute. I mean, it's pretty tough to watch.
You're very observant of the world around you. You're knowledgeable that going through, not around difficult circumstances is how we process them. And you're a master at reframing challenges into opportunities. I want to get into that on today's podcast. But first, I'd like to ask you that signature gratitude question. For all our new listeners, I've been hosting dinner parties. They started off in our home on July 15th, 2015. And I had this little bowl of pasta sauce, and I wanted to feed it to friends to see if it was good or not. And so I hosted a dinner party. We worked together to create the meal, and we had a wonderful shared group experience. And halfway through that dinner at 7:47 p.m., now the name of my cult, we paused, just like Drew and I are about to do, and we asked a simple question. Drew, if you could give credit or thanks to one person in your life that you don't give enough credit or thanks to, or that you've never thought to thank, who would that be?
Thank you for the question. I thought about it. And I feel like a lot of your guests always are like, well, I haven't talked to, I was going to say my mom, or I was going to say this, or I was going to say my partner. And all those things are true for me. I mean, I think that it's good to acknowledge the people that you do give gratitude to and those that you really feel have been a part of your journey. And I mean, that list is so long for me that I like this question because it can really take your mind to a place that you haven't gone to. I have a very untraditional answer. So my gratitude goes out to the 173 women that have been on The Real Housewives for the past 20 years. Not only have they given me personal moments of being able to kind of go to a different place and not feel the realities of what's around me, but I'm also fascinated by their ability to reinvent themselves year after year, show up as a different version of themselves, different story, different ability to grab viewers and bring them into what really matters to them, whether it's true or not, fabricated or not, real or not, dark, light, doesn't really matter, right? They show up differently. And I think we all should get that opportunity, right? Maybe it's not every season, but it's every season of our life. It doesn't have to be like every year as a season, but it could be, that Taylor Swift says era, right? Like that era of your life. If you want to show up differently, you should be able to. And for me, that's a big thanks because the societal impact, but also the personal impact to just show me difference of perspective and, to show people what people go through. So I guess if you had to say one person, I could say Andy Cohen. I don't want to give him that much credit though. So yeah, the women of The Real Housewives, that's really where my gratitude goes.
Holy guacamole, Drew. I've been asking this question for a long time. Some people have never thought to thank the judge that denied them bond. Some have never thought to thank the Ayatollah that locked up their grandparents. Some have never thought to thank God or Nelson Mandela or themselves. Bravo, Housewives. This is a new one.
Yeah.
And I love it. Question, what is the name of one housewife? You mentioned that watching them is great because every season represents a new era, represents a new year, represents a new chapter in your life. And earlier you said that every storm must end. What's one housewife who you watch go through a storm themselves? And how did they end it? And how did that give you hope?
Oh, that's a great one. I think there's an obvious one. It's ongoing. Mary Cosby from Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. She started talking with her son last season candidly about his drug addiction on camera. Pills, marijuana, cocaine, ecstasy, like real stuff that really mattered, to really showed the journey, not knowing what was wrong, checking in, those candid interviews that they have on television. And she was really open and honest. And I have to say that prior to that, I think she was holding back a lot for seasons. And this really allowed her, I think, to just kind of have a release. That was hard for me to watch because I think it just hit me in so many different places that we'll get into. So yeah, I'd have to say Mary Cosby from Salt Lake City. I think, I hate to say this about many of them, a lot of them have had those moments of going from one place to the next, but then going back to that other place, a few seasons later. So there is that fluidity of being able to kind of reinvent yourself. Doesn't mean that they're constantly healing themselves or fixing themselves. But I think if you're thinking in that direction of someone that I believe has really had that impact on me specifically, definitely Mary Cosby from Salt Lake City. Oh, yeah.
Holy guacamole. Mary Cosby. I'm not familiar with the exact person, but I know my girlfriend Molly and her sisters Mary Kate and Abby watch every show, especially the Salt Lake City edition. My friend Dr. Eric Sobriety that I grew up with is the plastic surgeon for all the Salt Lake City folk.
Oh, yeah.
And so I know that maybe he's been there to support her through her hard times, maybe as a friend. But what a wow. Mary Cosby, if you're listening to this, I know you're probably, if you're a parent, you're probably thinking to yourself, how does one react when you know that someone that you love so dearly, that you raised, is going through a hard time? What do you think that's like for her as a mother?
Well, I have to say, when I watched it last season, I thought about my own mom and dad and kind of what they went through. We don't have we didn't have cameras in our house growing up, and we weren't opening our lives to the world the way that they do on The Housewives. But I did try to think of how it could have felt, and it's devastating. I think that I've thought about this a lot in my own life, and we're so quick to look backwards at our childhood and where things went wrong and what direction pushed us into, bad decision making. And it can become so shameful, I think, on parents specifically. And the reality is that, like, as anyone that's gone through addiction knows, like, part of like our other full-time job, other than being an addict, is hiding our addiction. So, like, if you don't know, then that means we're doing our job well. And it's the reality with many people that are going through, active addiction, where you're not supposed to know. Like, you're not supposed to know that all this is happening behind the scenes. Like, I have so many family members that are like, I didn't know that was going on for you. And I'm like, yeah, that was the point. Like, that was my point. I didn't want you to know. That's part of that, like, the checks and balances of, like, managing. And so I think from a parent's lens, it's obviously heartbreaking, because you think about, like, what did I do wrong that pushed them to want to keep something like this from me or turn to something like this? But again, the reframe is, like, yes, what did you do wrong to that point, but what can you do right from that point forward? Right? Like, the same way, like, what hole was missing in that puzzle for them that pushed them to kind of go in a certain direction, but then how can you find a piece that fits in that can help them, heal through that time? And, the mere fact that people are able to tell their stories shows that they've survived to that point, right? Because if you're sharing your story, that means you're still here. And so I think anyone that discovers someone going through any type of challenge that could be, life-threatening, understand it's an opportunity. It's not something you have to really look back on from what went wrong, but more looking back on, and what decision do I make now for it to go right?
I love that reframe. I want to teach our audience a very simple 3-question reframe.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of leadership development work in my day with a fellow by the name of Admiral Mike McCabe.
Okay.
He was the former executive officer in charge of Top Gun. He was the head of naval aviation at the Pentagon. He was the CEO of a commercial airline, and he was a 4-minute miler at Oregon way back in the day with Prefontaine.
Wow.
And we teach a very simple concept called the military style debrief. And it assumes positive solution-oriented activity rather than diagnosing the net negative from before. And it's 3 questions. And you can use a debrief in every single thing you do, after a call, after riding the subway, after, taking a risk, whatever. Number 1, what went well? Number 2, what could have gone better? Number 3, what are we going to do differently next time? You see that reframe, Drew?
That 3rd question gets lost a lot.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, it just does. I mean, I think we do talk about, like, what went wrong, what could have been better, but then we miss that 3rd question of, like, well, how do we take, like, the positive, the negative, and then see what, net we're moving forward with, right? Like, it doesn't really, the math doesn't always math for people. If you know that something went well and then something went wrong, that means you should be taking bits from what went well and kind of pushing out the pieces that went wrong and thinking in that way. Many people, I think, kind of do the work on both sides, and then they don't really put them both together to say, what's our moving forward step?
So my favorite definition of empathy, and by the way, for just reference, when I first started hosting my dinners, and then the first thing I wanted to, I needed to make money. I didn't monetize the dinner table. I monetized myself as a coach, whatever that looked like. And what I called myself was the empathy coach.
Yeah.
And this is in 2017.
Ooh, innovator.
And so it was so weird, but I read a book called Empathy, Why It Matters and How to Get It. And it was written by a man by the name of Roman Krznaric. And he was a faculty at the School of Life, and he was on the board of Wired magazine. And he defines empathy as the art of imaginatively stepping into the shoes of another person, understanding their feelings and perspectives, but then using that knowledge to guide your action. My friend Madeline Pryor says empathy without action is empty. And that's what you just said. You could do the work. Building the relationship, listening and learning, asking good questions, stepping into the shoes of another. But folks, if you don't take action on what you just learned, it's kind of wasted effort.
Totally.
Right?
Absolutely.
And you see that, huh?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that, it's kind of like that idea of just being like a skeleton walking around. It's like, there's no substance there. Yeah. There's no purpose there. There's no like action item that's moving you forward. And I think it doesn't really make sense to be gaining this knowledge and perspective and understanding and talking to people and being human and then not doing anything with it.
Yeah. One of my favorite things is to get someone really jacked up on a call or get really jacked up over coffee or something. And then at the end, it's just a simple question. Now what? And they go, and then they start dreaming of future-oriented action.
Yeah.
Solution-based problem solving. And we end up doing some pretty magical things together.
Absolutely.
All you got to do is spend the time, get to know someone, and then at the end say, now what? It drives action.
Yeah. And I think the hardest piece too is don't play hide and seek with yourself, right? Like don't let your thoughts hide and then go try to find them.
That's the second time that you've brought up the word hiding.
Ooh.
Hiding our addiction, hide and seek with ourself. We're going to get to that in a little bit later, but I want to close the door on something.
Yeah.
You talked about, not just going back into the childhood trauma or looking backwards on what went wrong, but also creating the space to look ahead to the future to help things go more right, to create positive action for the future. My friend Steven Kotler, 4-time New York Times bestselling author and a Nobel laureate, all these kind of great things. He says we have a cult of trauma in this country. And Stephen Pressfield, a great author, once said, the more we redredge the boring injustices of our past, the weaker we become at actually overcoming our own internal resistance and doing the work we need to do to get ahead. How do you balance in this world the idea of looking backwards and creating a safe space for, looking back at what went wrong, with also helping people dream a better future? Like, how do you find that balance, maybe in your life or in the work around you? But to me, that's a very big thing that we have imbalance in this country. I think we spend too much time on the past, maybe with therapy, and we spend so much emotional energy there that we don't get to go to the future as often, and it traps us. I don't know. I'm just maybe just from a questions perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I've grappled with this for years since I got sober, right? Like, I think it's a natural. And as you said, we'll get into that. But like, I think the reality is how do you balance the past with the future? And I've heard a few different things that I think have guided me to thinking the way I do. But one that was really that kind of came to me, I don't really think any one person shared this with me. I think it was a collective kind of deduction of reasoning by me, was this idea that like we always have to ask ourselves why instead of what, right? Like we have to ask ourselves like, why did that happen? Not like what happened, because we know what happened. And so the reality is like when we look backwards, we have to really be focusing on why something happened and not getting fixated on what happened, the details of it, the takeaways from it, but the why. Right? Because that's the only thing that I think we can see reappear in the future is the why. It might be a different experience, a different trauma, something that brings us backwards in a similar fashion, but different. The why might be the same though.
Mhm.
And if that's the case, then finding the why is the only way that you're able to really, I think, carry the past and let it inform your future without it, kind of holding you backwards. Another thing I've heard recently, Jay Shetty said it recently on his podcast. He heard it from a friend. It was this idea that like our past is like a stone that we carry, right? And we carry that stone. We get stronger. The stone doesn't change in size though, but it becomes easier to carry because we got stronger. But the stone that we're carrying stays the same size. It stays the same shape. We just are able to carry it forward in a different capacity because we've built the strength to carry that stone. And when I heard that really rang true to me. I don't think there's a perfect answer because I think some people have the ability to really filter out that past with all the negative and really let it allow to inform their future. Other people, I feel like, their past can sometimes come in as that like inner critic that's like, hey, remember what happened the last time when you took that risk, or remember what happened the last time that you felt this way. And I think those are the really hard moments where we have to come in as human beings and say, yes, but I'm not that person anymore.
Ooh.
And so it's like, I think it's a very delicate relationship that everyone has to have with the past. But I do believe that it is very much possible to carry the past, hold it very, very true to who you are. As long as it's as long as it's kind of in a way, just like kind of being kind of like your co-pilot into the future, not the pilot, right? Like you can't let it fly the plane. You just kind of have to let it be on the plane with you, I think is more kind of my way of saying that.
Love it. Drew, I just drew a stone on this piece of paper. Write down one word that deserves to be on that stone that you carry with you every day, that you've now become stronger to carry.
Oh, you said one word.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm going to write a little phrase.
Good. Do it. Is this from Mr. Carter?
No.
Oh. Folks, if you're listening to this just on audio, Drew is actually taking up my challenge and he's drawing on a stone on a piece of paper that I just handed him.
However, I did write the one word too, and it's why.
Why? Yeah.
That's why I have to carry it, is why. Why did that happen?
And the words on this stone that now you carry in your heart but become stronger at carrying each and every day are: solutions are not found in the what, but the why.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
I mean, again, it's this idea that,
Actually, I should say, don't tell me about the idea. Tell me about the story that inspired that in your life.
Oh, I mean, this is where we start, right? I mean, listen, let's just say it the way it is, because I think this is the best way to say it. I'm a middle child. I was born Irish Catholic family.
How many children?
3 of us.
Okay.
2 sisters.
Gotcha.
One older, one younger. Only queer person in the family. And I think that a lot of my story is very natural, like things that you hear, like black sheep of the family, middle child syndrome, all of that. I also have ADHD. I've had it my whole life. But since an early age, I think that I never had any type of person in my life that ever said, why did you do that? Why did that happen? Why are you feeling that way? Why did you say that? And I think that it was always, what did you say? What did you do to them? And I think it was always about the action and it was never about the feeling. And for so long, I went in circles, like I would, from an early age, I would feel othered because of that, right? Like, because I didn't feel that sense of belonging, because I, had different personality traits that people felt were not going to benefit me in the future. And they were looked as negatives, right? So I can vividly think back to, I was in 8th grade and I was a decent athlete growing up. I'd say decent athlete. I came from a very heavy sports, town culture. I don't know if you kind of where you came from, but like youth sports were a big thing. Like it was very much sports. And 8th grade, 7th, 8th grade is a pretty formidable time because it's like the last time that you're playing with people that you've played with like your whole life. Then everyone goes to college or high school and it's like some private, but then it's also like if you're good, you make the better team. If varsity, junior varsity, freshman team, all that. And so I just remember vividly, it was the first tryout of our like 8th grade basketball year, and I'd always made the travel team. And I asked a question after the first tryout, and the first tryout was like everyone that had made the travel team the year before, but then all of like, every person in town that wanted to play basketball from like the youth, like just the in-town leagues and everything. So the people that made the travel team, they dominated these tryouts because like they were playing people that they shouldn't have been playing against, right? So I just asked a simple question after the first tryout, 8th grade, when is the second tryout? I wasn't invited to the second tryout after that question.
Oh, God.
Now I look back on that and I'm like, that wasn't really a stupid question. I'm busy. I got a lot of things going on. Like listen, I didn't want to just play sports. Like I cared about music and the arts and I never ever felt like I could do both. And I never felt like I could be my own person. And then when I ask a question simply because I want to know, like when is that tryout going to be? And then I'm met with, oh, how do you know you're going to make that tryout? Now you're not. Versus, hey, like, that was kind of an inappropriate question because there's some people here that won't be going to that tryout. Like, I knew I was going to that tryout. What, did you just watch the same tryout I watched? Like I was playing a bunch of people that don't play on the travel team, like people that don't play basketball at the level I did. Like, it's not a dumb question, right? But the reality is no one ever told me why it was a dumb question in that moment. They just told me it was wrong. And I took that forward and I carried it with me as being wrong. And I never asked myself why. So fast forward, like this is kind of my journey year after year after year up until early 30s, and through the substance abuse, everything, where I never went that extra distance of saying, well, why is that happening? Like, what's going on? I was expecting people to say that to me myself, and no one did ever, versus always telling me what I did wrong. So then I build up this kind of, just like war chest of negativity. You're always in trouble. You're always speaking out. You're always doing things wrong, versus you ask good questions. You're curious. You want to know more about people because you actually care about the day-to-day and your movement to movement. It's not just robotic for you. And I think that now I look back on it and I'm like, wait a minute, like the same qualities that I was always told were going to limit me are why I am who I am today. They're my superpowers.
Yeah.
And if someone had maybe gone just a little bit further on any of those little moments growing up and shared a little bit more about the why with me instead of the what, who knows where I would have been. And who knows if I would have put myself through some of the same pain and bad choices and addiction and hurt people the way I did and hurt myself. And, so when I see parents today talking to kids, like I'm always like, in my mind, I'm like, don't let them get away with so much. But at the same time, I love the idea that they don't just say, oh, go to your room, go sit in the corner. That was wrong. You're not allowed to go play with your friends. Give me your phone. You're not going out this weekend. It's more, hey, like we got to talk about that. Why did you do that? Because that's just the only way we can really change behaviors. It's the only way we can really change futures. It's the only way we can really put into perspective kind of like this really, really, really delicate, but also really difficult journey of life that no one can go through flawlessly. I don't care who you are. But instead, we, for so many years, resulted to just wanting to tell people what they did wrong, what they should have done, and why they are in the position they're in. AKA, I want to other you. I don't want you to feel like what you're doing is everyone goes through, or I don't want you to feel like other people are going through similar things. I want you to feel different because that's the way you're going to learn and grow. Come on now. It's not how we learn and grow.
I mean, 30, 40 years of that has kind of taken its toll on our country.
Oh,
Or 50, 60 years of that,
Yeah.
or 100 years of that has taken its toll on our society.
Yeah. And
telling people how they should and should not
live their lives.
Yeah.
And I think that the other piece of it too is that like it really creates false perspective of your life. Like, I mean, you really can start to feel like you're the problem. Like, I really have to say that by the time I was going to college, like I genuinely believed that my ADHD was going to limit me for my entire life. I laugh now because it's funny to me.
As someone with ADHD, I get it.
But imagine, since I was 6 years old, I would go to a behavioral doctor, right? And I would.
Me too.
And I went, and the building was separate from the hospital.
Yep.
It was in the back.
Yep.
It was special because I was special, but not in good ways. Now, I have no problem. I mean, again, like,
that's so funny.
I would love to add another therapist to my roster. So it's like, bring it on. Like, I love that kind of mentality now. But at that time, it was hard enough going to the nurse's office after lunch every day to get my second dose of medication. It wasn't because I had a headache every day.
That's hilarious.
Like, and it's hard, and it's worse when your mother's the nurse too, which was the case half the time too.
Oh, wow.
So it's like you're going down, and then not only is it like you're going to the nurse's office to get your second set of medication, you're also then being said, did you behave this morning? Did you behave the first part of the day?
Oh my gosh.
Because
Did you do what you should have done?
because the smile chart wasn't enough. Happy face, sad face, right? Like, I mean, I mean, the stories are endless. I mean, like second grade, I couldn't go on my fun run because, like, why? Because first graders were running before me, and they were running and out the window, and we hadn't gone down yet from our second grade classroom. And the teacher said, "Oh, look, they're all running." I knocked on the window and waved to my friend. Not allowed to run in the fun run, Andrew. That's what they call me, Andrew. Why? Oh, because I knocked on a window to encourage my friend. You look back on these things and you're like, wait a minute, but that to me silenced me encouraging people for years.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was told, like, no, mind your own business, be quiet. Instead, it should have been like, that's awesome. You should all bang on the windows and encourage your friends. They're windows. You're 7 or 8 years old. Who cares? Right? Like, and I think those are the moments that I think are on that stone. I was met with what for so long, and I just wish that people had met me with why.
I relate so much to your story, and I thank you for sharing it.
Yeah, no.
I started going to Dr. Quisenberry at the age of 5. I was put on, ADHD medicine that same year. I was silenced. I was told, not to act out.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel exactly what you've just said. And I'm not sorry you had to go through it.
No, I'm not either.
Because I believe that my time spent being put in that othered space, with the medicine, with I used to learn in a room just like this where I could see my friends through the window, but they couldn't see me. And the walls were padded. That was my first and second grade. Right?
Yeah.
So, like, same padding is on this wall, actually. That's what's funny. But I wouldn't wish my life any other way.
Oh, I mean,
the addiction, the ADHD, the insecurity, the imposter syndrome, I think helped us become who we were meant to be.
Absolutely. I also think that in a way it's been my survival guide.
Of course.
Like, there is something to be said, and I say this all the time to my parents, as much as I don't agree with every decision they made or medical professionals around them made, I also have to say thank you for caring. Thank you for trying to do what you thought was the right thing. Do you know how many people didn't do any of that? Like and you have to look back on that, because it's not like our parents put us in a home, and trust me, like, those things existed when we were kids. Maybe not, the same way that they were a couple decades before that, but they did exist. And I think the idea that even if it wasn't the most thought through and it wasn't the most encouraging all the time, to know that my parents were willing to prioritize my mental health with what they knew at the time, at least it gives me a sense of understanding that even though it wasn't perfect,
they were trying.
The intention was there.
My mom read Ned Hallowell's books on ADHD, who he then later came on my podcast because my cousin Chris Gata introduced me. And Ned Hallowell used to have these ADHD mom circles all across the country. And my mom was like the chairman of the mom circle. So, like, she was trying. She was doing her best.
Totally
Fucked me up. And I don't remember a single moment of my childhood because of the amphetamines, but that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But she was trying her best. And I hate that I've had moments. And Mom, I guess I'm talking to you right now. She doesn't often... I don't even know if she knows I have a podcast.
That's funny.
But I know that I've sometimes blamed the doctors, but also maybe sometimes, blame you for putting me on the meds and letting them put me on. But I don't blame you, Mom. And I know you were doing your best. And And I can see that. And I'm grateful for you every step of the way. And you're still my biggest cheerleader. And so question about the parents.
Yeah.
So first of all, my favorite book in the world is called Anatomy of Peace. It's the fictional story of 6 sets of parents dropping their kids off to a wilderness treatment facility in the woods of Arizona, very similar to the rehab facility I went to. The camp is owned by an Israeli Jew and a Palestinian Arab. This book was written 30 years ago. This is not new.
Innovative.
Right? And, but it's a conflict resolution bestseller for decades. And, this one guy, Lou Herbert, one of the dads, drops his kids off, Corey, and he looks at the rehab owners and says, I can't wait to spend the next 2 days learning how you're going to fix my kid. And the rehab owner says, we're not going to be talking about your kids at all for the next 2 days. We're going to be talking about you, the parent. And Lou says, he's like the CEO of Zagram in the story, right? Big, powerful type we all know. And he said, well, I'm not the broken one, Corey is. The rehab owner says, yes, but in order to see the change you want to see in others, first you have to make the change within yourself. My question to you is, in the idea of, having a parent, talk to you about the why, not the what, in order to encourage a parent to go one step further, to go that next step in understanding, what's a tip or a tool for the listeners who are listening to this? To know that they play a role in our development and our success or trauma.
Yeah.
But then in a world where a lot of parents and leaders are pretty burnt out and it's hard to go the extra mile, they have compassion fatigue. How do you encourage someone, it's not too late, just in general, to go one step further? How do we do that to make sure we always show up with dignity and respect and compassion in a world where we're all just fighting to stay alive?
Yeah. I mean, it's like vulnerability 101. I mean, I think is really the answer, right? Like, I don't know my mom and dad's upbringing. I've heard stories. Quite frankly, I don't think either one of them have really dug into their upbringing. I don't think they've asked themselves why they are who they are and why they are what they are and why they think the way they do and why they're in the places they're in. I mean, my dad lost both of his parents before he was my age, like before he was in his mid-30s. He lost his dad before he was 20 years old. So, I mean, I can tell him a little bit what's wrong just by hearing those stats, right? Like, I mean, that's natural. There's nothing to be ashamed of there. But this idea of like connection, this idea of like having conversations as you go through the natural challenges of life, he never had because they couldn't physically be had. So as, like my sister, my sister has 2 children, lives in California. My parents and my sister had not issues, but just tough times for years, like dealing with the distance, right? And the reality is like my dad doesn't have anything to go off of just like, he knows about how it feels to like live outside of, where you grew up. He and my mom and my sister lived different places before I was born, but he didn't have to deal with like parents being like, I can't be around my granddaughter as much, right? Like, I think my grandmother was still alive, his mother for early years, but I have 16 or 15 cousins on my dad's side. So like there were other grandchildren around. So she probably wasn't as upset that she couldn't be around her grandchild as much as my parents might be when they only had one grandchild, right? But the idea is like, how unfair is that for my sister to have to go through conversations that really don't bring in her experience and perspective, and they're not really welcoming her to that table. But then again, how is it my dad's fault too in his scenario? Because he didn't get to experience that himself. It's not like he has this look back memory where he can say, oh, well, when I was going through challenges like this, he didn't have those. So I think there's this like, first thing parents can do is be honest about the truth of your life. Like not where you are now, but where you came from.
Yeah. Like,
what did that look like? And how does that differ from the environment, the ecosystem that your child is growing up in? It could be better that your child's growing up in a better environment. It could be that they're growing up in a worse environment. It could be that you're just not being honest with yourself about the environment you grew up in. Because it's so easy when we get, to where we want to be in life to forget about everything that happened prior to that.
Oh, yeah.
And, That's why I'm so grateful for people that are like, I'm not a mess today, but I was a mess in the past, maybe even yesterday. But I'm not right now, or I don't consider that. But we all have to embrace the mess of what it is. And I think that the sooner you do that, people say, oh, you can't have your kids be your friend. I disagree with that. What's the definition of a friend? Okay? Yes, your kids shouldn't be going out with you. You shouldn't be buying them alcohol or drugs, God forbid, or giving them bad advice when it comes to, how they deal with conflict with friends or a partner. But is that friendship? I think that's being like a groupie. It's being an acquaintance. What are we doing Friday night? Oh, you're still dating so-and-so. She's cute. He's an ass. What, you know what I mean? That's surface level shit. Real friendship is deeper. So when people say I don't want to be friends with my kids, I'm like, that's crock shit. I look at my sister and her husband with their 2 kids, and I'm like, the 4 of them are best friends. My brother-in-law will say it's kind of a joke. My nephew is his best friend. How many years apart are they? My nephew's 9 or about to be 9. My brother-in-law is 40. That's crazy. But the reality is that my nephew will never not feel comfortable going to his parents. In my heart, I feel that way. But it doesn't mean that my parents did anything wrong. It just means that our upbringings, our realities were different. And what do they say? When you know better, you do better, right? And so that's another piece too. We know better now. We know better. So stop going backwards and saying, I've had people these days that say, oh, my grandmother used to tell me, don't talk about religion and don't talk about politics. Oh, why is the world on fire? Because we don't want to talk about or get along with each other when we have difference in religion or when we have difference in politics. Well, there we go. That works really well. that statement's really, really aged well.
Drew, when you talk about vulnerability and friendship, you're really talking about connection. And I think that's missing in today's society. It's just the ability to connect, to pass the bread, to share a plate of pasta, to disagree, just to have a conversation. And one of the things that you've written about before is that connection in recovery, let me quote it. Even in recovery, connection is not only possible, it's essential.
Oof.
What does human connection mean to you today? And how do you go out and create it for others?
Listening. I mean, that's the number one answer. What do they say? God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason.
Yes.
It's listening, listening to what other people will share with you, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, how they approach certain problems. I mean, it's the only real way that can happen. However, I also think that connection for me is everything. I mean, I look back to, my first year in recovery, or was it really? I mean, I guess we would say that was sobriety, right? Because there was no connection. It was just getting the substance out of my life. I wasn't able to really rebuild until I started to interact with people.
You were what's called a dry drunk.
Yeah.
All the behaviors were still there. You just removed drink away.
Absolutely. And I think that, we're so wired to wake up in the morning, get through our day, AKA survive. Get through means survive, for those that don't want to acknowledge that. And then go to sleep and wake up and do it again. And I think the reality is we're already more disconnected than we've ever been. Remote work is at an all-time high. Hybrid work, obviously, too. So many people are opting out of the same events and conferences and convenings that they would opt into pre-COVID for whatever reason. Some people it's financial, other people it's social, emotional. It could be anything. I have found that it doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter what your job is. Without connection, there's no growth. It's like the water. It's the fertilizer that waters the grass, right? You can grow, I guess, on paper, but true growth, foundational growth without connection, there is none. I mean, how do you plant seeds that grow in the future? When everything that you're doing is just for you in that moment. And I think that, you can create things in relationships, you can create new businesses, you can have, instant, or I guess just like immediate growth. But what does that do for you long term? And so I think those that don't prioritize connection, yeah, they may have short term wins, but it's like the long term gains, like they're almost impossible without connection.
It's the old Ubuntu, kind of South African proverb: "I am because we are."
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Absolutely.
I mean, Ubuntu is so. I talk about Ubuntu a lot in our keynotes, and it's it quite simply is translated as, "I can't be all I can be unless you are all you can be.
Mm-hmm.
I can never be threatened by how good you are, because the better off you are, the better I will be."
This is how South Africa got through apartheid.
Yeah.
Like, this is how they got through massive
It was
social issues.
Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu's rallying cry. And you want to talk about growth and success, it's how the 2008 Boston Celtics won the NBA championship.
That's right.
They went from a 24-58 team.
Paul Pierce, Antoine Walker doing the jiggle.
Yeah. They went from pretty much last place in the league to first place in the league overnight, because Doc Rivers introduced the philosophy of Ubuntu at an off-season training camp in Rome, Italy, before the season ever even began. And he got the culture, or he got the rookies to teach the word to the team. And Kevin Garnett in the back got to raise his hand and said, "Hey, man, we're in."
Yeah.
And there's a much longer explanation, but you need people. And anybody who's watching this, when I asked that gratitude question earlier, if you sat there and said, "I got here alone," or you sat there and said, "I don't have a good answer because I've already thanked everybody in my life," I call bull honky, folks. Bull honky, folks. Do some soul searching. There are a lot more people who have provided tremendous amounts of positive benefits that you are not acknowledging. And as Mr. Rogers says, go look for the helpers. And I think that if you go out and do that, you can get through pretty much anything. I want to start landing this ship. Drew, we've had a really fun conversation, and I actually want to ask you about a quote. I want to ask you about a quote that I literally just put. I'm giving a talk to 1,700 young kids in Burley, Idaho, in 2 weeks. So I think about 1,000 of them have gone through some kind of, adverse situation or alternative kind of schooling kind of thing. And I put in a Pitbull Christina Aguilera quote into the keynote this morning as I was starting to think ahead, or at least put it in the notes. And it said, the song, Feel the Moment. There's the line that goes, ask for money, get advice. Ask for advice, get money twice. One day in the night, when I will. So when you're looking out, it makes me think of all the work that you do with youngsters. When you think of the idea of saying there's a lot of people that are out there right now that are, looking for their first opportunity, they're jobless, they don't know what tomorrow may bring. Getting a job may not be what's next for them, but learning the wisdom of elders or asking for advice, what can a kid do that's watching this to get ahead, to connect, to find a mentor, whatever? What do you think kids should be doing these days?
I mean, I think it's first inner work, right? It's, what do I want to do in this world? And I think that, yes, you can turn to people in your life to say, what am I good at? What do you see in me? Where do you think I can bring my light? And are there certain areas that you think that I could share that light and could help the world? Of course. And there's going to be people that give you really great advice, and there's going to be people that you think know you, and then they give you advice and you're like, okay, I guess they did not know me as well as I thought they did. But the reality is, what do you want to do? And I think the hardest piece of all this is that and I shared this with a young person that I talked to consistently recently when they were asking me about internships that they should look into. And I said, don't focus as much on like what you do in that job. Think about like, what does the company do? What products they offer. And this was before they were getting to go for an interview. And they're like, what do you mean by that? Like, it's a sales internship. Shouldn't I be like, what do I know about sales? And I'm like, well, sales is easy. You're taking a product I sell people, right? But like you take a product that it's like physical being or person, ideas, and you want someone to buy it. So it's like you want to convince that person that this product that you're selling is valuable to them. And in my mind, like I try to think of like, where did things shift for me? And when I started to understand, and I guess it intersects with Ubuntu too, is this idea of like, when I started to realize what I'd gone through in my life, when I'd started to realize like how I was able to kind of care about the things I care about, the things that really mattered to me, the things that stood out when I thought about them, like the through lines, the moments of inspiration. It was all centered on things I really, really deeply cared about. And for years, I can sell ice to an Eskimo, right? Like I really can. I'll ask my partner. He'll be the first to tell you. But there's this idea of authenticity that shines through. Our friend Erin Hatzikausis, she talks about authenticity as a competitive advantage, right? And it's the truth. It's like when you know who you are and you put that into the work you're doing, and there's a natural and organic way to intersect and to flow, you're unstoppable. And that's what I have found, since I got sober, which is really where I say, I always say Drew 2.0, but I call it Drew 0.0, right? Is when Drew 0.0 started, I started to realize that like, yes, the sales piece is important, but the reason why I'm doing it is more important. Because the way in which I sell will change as there's new technologies, there's AI, there's so much that can go into our industry and this and that. And that's the same with any sales role, any industry role. But the why, again, doesn't change. And it shouldn't change if you're in the right space. And so what I say to young people is find that why. It sounds cliche, but if you don't find it, you can do good work. I guess you can do well, but do you do good when you do well? And that's the piece that I've really started to focus on. The ultimate goal for anyone that really cares about the world, but also wants to have strong business relationships, progress in their career, find that sweet spot for yourself of how you can do well and do good at the same time. And when you can do that, that's when you have that long-term career. But the first question they have to ask themselves is, why? Why am I here? What do I want to do? What impact do I want to make? What matters to me? And then what am I good at? And then how do I pair that together?
Sounds like Ikigai.
Who's that?
Oh, well, first of all, if you had to title, because there's a model that you've just described, I can visualize, I'm like drawing it.
Yeah.
What should I be doing? How do I do well and do good? Why? What am I good at? What would you call that?
I mean,
just
maybe like inside out, right? Like something like that. Because I think the reality is for years, I lived my life from the outside in.
Yeah.
And it was, what job did I want? What partner did I want? What outfit was I going to wear? How was I going to look in front of this group of people? How I was going to interact? What title was I going to have in 10 years?
Yeah.
And it's like, are you serious? You think you can predict those things and then work backwards? No. It is this idea of inside out, right?
I love it.
And when we move that way, that's when you know that even if you're not in the right space, even if you're not taking on the job that you want or the future that you want, or you decide to go to school for something that you end up, it's not really what you want to go to school for. Hey, you decide not to go to school and then you realize you want to go to school. At least when you ask that question, why, as you navigate the career side, you are leading with that. Yeah. And so you know that even if you take on the wrong role or something changes, at least you're grounded in what matters to you. And at least you know that you're speaking of it from a place of truth and authenticity.
It reminds me of Simon Sinek's Start With Why.
Yeah.
Right? You mentioned find your why. The inner circle is why. The medium circle is how. The outside circle is what. Simon says that most people or organizations can tell you what they do. Yeah. What they sell, what their product is. Some can even maybe a few can tell you how they do it, how they're different, what their unique value proposition is, but very few can tell you why.
Exactly.
Why is not money or profits? Those are results. Why is the thing that inspires you and those around you to succeed? And so, folks, if you're listening to this, if you can find that why and start with why, flip that model on its head, start with the why, and then the how, and then the what, instead of what, how, why, you will get ahead. And Ikigai is actually a Japanese framework that they use to find success, clarity, and focus in their life. I first heard it on Sunday, January 24th, 2016, when I was snow sledding with my buddy Dave. He asked me at a very pivotal moment in my life, what am I good at? What am I passionate about? What does the world need? What can I make money about? Or what can I make money doing? And the answer to all four of those questions at the time was the dinner table. It was pasta sauce. It was his gratitude question. And he looked at me and he said the old Russian proverb, you can't chase two rabbits at the same time. They'll both get away. Focus equals growth.
Absolutely.
And I've been all in on the dinner table ever since. Drew, I want to honor everybody's time listening to this. What a journey that we've been on over the last hour. We've covered a tremendous amount of ground. We've talked about spending less time focusing on what's been wrong and focusing more time on what's going right. Moving away from hiding our addiction and playing hide and seek with ourselves and stepping forth into that authenticity as a fuel and a framework for growth. We talked about the fact that, folks, no matter what you're going through, every storm will end, especially if you build the right harbor to protect yourself from the storm. We talked about the power of reframing and reinvention and going from rejection to redirection. We talked about how without connection, there is no growth. We talked about how solutions are not found in the what, but found in the why. First question before closing, if you could say something to Mary Cosby on the podcast right now to give her thanks, what would you say?
Oh, I would just say, it's so incredible when we share our stories with people that want to hear them, that are looking for them. It's even more powerful when people share their stories with people that aren't expecting them and seeing how those stories impact those people. And so I'd say to Mary Cosby, thank you for sharing your truth on a platform that is not traditionally known for such truth-telling, because the impact that was made on someone like me, of course. I mean, I look for those stories on every street corner of New York City, but many people don't. And those stories hit hard when they do. And the amount of impact that could have been through this. She has no idea. She'll have no idea the changes that she could have helped make.
Mary, thanks for all you do. Drew, any last words in closing?
I'm good, man. This was great. I'm so grateful for you and for being in the space.
Appreciate you coming on, folks. Thanks for tuning in. For all the new listeners that stumbled upon our humble little corner of the internet, holy guacamole. Y'all joined an adventure. And I thank you for your participation. Click that subscribe button. Share this episode with a friend, like Drew just said. You never know who needs to hear this message. Send it to someone in need. For all our loyal listeners, good to see you, friend. Give me a call next time when you're in New York. I got a seat at my table open with your name on it. Keep those thoughts, questions, comments, concerns flowing. Tons of stuff to check out in the show notes below. But it's been a blessing having Drew Sullivan on the podcast today. I hope y'all are having a phenomenal day on Earth. Remember, folks, it's your world. Go explore. We'll see you next episode.